This is a reading from the poem of the Man God by Maria Valtorta, Volume 4, Episode 459. At Johanna of Chuza's, Letters from Antioch, 23rd of July, 1946. All the inhabitants of Tiberias have rushed onto the lake shores or to the lake itself to find relief in the breeze blowing over the water and stirring the foliage of trees in the gardens along the shore. The rich people of this town, where many races have gathered and mingled for many reasons, are finding comfort in comfortable sport boats, or from the shade of their green gardens. They are watching the movements of boats on the turquoise waters, which have already been cleared of the yellowish hue ensuing from the downpour of the previous evening. The poor people, and children in particular, are romping on the shore, where the wavelets come to die, and their shrill screams, when the cold water wets them higher up than they would wish, sound like the screeching of swallows. The boats of Peter and James come close to the shore, and steer towards the little pier. "No, to Johanna's garden," orders Jesus. Peter obeys without speaking, and the boat, followed by her twin sister, veers round perfectly, leaving a foamy wake, shaped like a question mark, and steers towards the landing place at Chuza's garden, which it approaches and stops. Jesus is the first to land, and gives a hand to the two Marys, helping them to disembark on the pier. "You will now go to the main mole and preach the Lord there. You will see a man who will approach you, asking where I am. He is the man from Antioch. Bring him to me after you have dismissed the crowds." "Yes, but what are we to tell the people? Are we to tell them that you have come, or preach your doctrine?" "That I have come. Tell them at dawn I will speak at Tiberias, and I will cure the sick people. One of you should look after the boats, or get one of the disciples to do that, so that they may be ready to depart. Go, and peace be with you." And he sets out towards the gate which closes on the landing stage. The two Marys follow him in silence. There is no one to be seen in the large garden, in which some tenacious roses are still blooming, although very sparsely. But one can hear the happy cries of the two little ones who are playing. Inserting his hand through the arabesques of the gate, Jesus tries to make the bolt slide without success. He looks for something with which to make a noise and attract attention, but does not find anything. Then, hearing the voices of the two children closer, he calls in a loud voice, "Mary!" The two voices become silent all of a sudden. Jesus repeats, "Mary!" Then, in the middle of the lawn, which is as smooth as a carpet, with the well-kept rose bushes rising from it, a little girl appears, walking with short, wary steps, a little finger pressed on her lips, her searching eyes scanning in all directions. Then, a few steps behind her, there is Matthias, followed by a little lamb as white as foam. "Mary, Matthias!" shouts Jesus. His voice guides the innocent eyes. The two children look towards the gate, and they see Jesus, his face against the bars, smiling at them. "The Lord!" "Run, Matthias, call mother. Tell Elias or Micah to come and open." "You can go. I am going to the Lord." And they both start running with their arms stretched out like two butterflies, one white, the other rosy, with a little dark head. But fortunately, while running, they call the servants, who rush out still holding the watering cans and rakes, so that at last the gate is opened and the children take shelter in the arms of Jesus, who kisses them and crosses the threshold holding them by the hands. "Mummy is in the house with her friends. They always send us away because they do not want us," says Matthias promptly. "Don't speak so harshly. Mummy sends us away because those ladies are Romans, and they still speak of their gods, and we who have been saved by Jesus must know him only. That is why, Lord. Matthias is still too young, and he does not understand," she says gracefully, with the wisdom of a creature who has suffered, and is thus more mature and more adult than her age would suggest. "Father also sends us away when those of the court come, and I would like to stay because almost everyone is a soldier, a warrior. War. War is beautiful. It makes one win. It sends the Romans away. Down with Rome. Hurrah for the kingdom of Israel," shouts the boy proudly. "War is not beautiful, Matthias, and very often one does not win, and then one from subject becomes a slave. But your kingdom must come, and to make it come, a war will be waged, and everybody will be sent away, also Herod, and you will be king." "Be silent, silly boy. You know that you are not to repeat what you hear. They are right in sending you away. Don't you know that you can harm father, mother, and also Jesus by saying that?" says Mary, and then she explains. "One day, that man who is like a prince and is a relative of Herod, and is also your disciple, came to speak to father. And they shouted so much they were not alone, but with many more people. They were all handsome, with lovely swords, and they spoke of war, interrupts Matthias. Be quiet now. They shouted so much that we could hear them, and since then this fool does nothing but speak of it. Tell him that he must not. Mummy told him, and father has threatened to take him to the top of the great Hermon, and to leave him in a grotto with a deaf and dumb slave until he learns to be silent. And he would have to be silent there, because if he speaks to the slave, the latter will not hear him, and will not reply to him, and if he shouts, eagles and wolves will come to eat him. A really terrible punishment, says Jesus, smiling and caressing the child who has lost his boldness and presses against Jesus as if he already saw eagles and wolves ready to devour him completely, including his little imprudent tongue. A really dreadful punishment, he repeats. Yes, and I'm afraid that that is what is going to happen to him, and that I will be left without Matthias, and I cry. But he feels no pity for me or for Mummy, and will make us die broken-hearted. I don't do it deliberately. I say what I hear. It's so nice to think that the Romans are defeated, that Herod and Philip are expelled, and that Jesus is the King of Israel, he concludes in a whisper, concealing his face against Jesus' tunic to deaden even more the sound of his voice. Matthias will never say these things again. He will promise me and will keep his promise. Is that right? So he will not be devoured, and Johanna and Mary will not die broken-hearted. Chuza will not be upset, and I will not be hated. Because, see, Matthias, you have me hated by saying such things. Are you glad if Jesus is persecuted? Just imagine how remorseful it would be if one day you had to say to yourself, I made people persecute Jesus who saved me because I repeated what I heard people say by chance. They were men, and men often lose sight of God because they are sinners, and they do not see God, they do not see wisdom, and they make well-intentioned mistakes, or what they think such. But children are good. Their spirits see God, and God rests in their hearts. Thus they must understand things in a wise manner, and say that my kingdom will not be established through violence on the earth, but with love in the hearts of men. And they must pray so that men may understand this kingdom of mine as children understand it. The prayers of children are taken to heaven by their angels, and the Most High converts them into graces. And Jesus needs such graces to change men who think of war and of a temporal kingdom into apostles who understand that Jesus is peace and that his kingdom is spiritual and heavenly. See this little lamb? Could it tear anything to pieces? No. If it could do that, Father would not have given it to us, not to have us torn to pieces. Exactly. You are right. Also the Father who is in heaven would never have sent me if I had had the power and will to tear to pieces. I am lamb and shepherd, and I am as meek and docile as a lamb, and I am he who gathers with love, with the crook of a good shepherd, and not with the lance and sword of a warrior. Have you understood? And will you promise me, just me, that you will never speak of these things again? Yes, Jesus, but help me, because by myself I will help you. Look, I will caress your lips, and thus they will be able to remain closed. My master, this is a holy evening, as it allows me to see you, says Jonathan, coming from the house and prostrating himself at Jesus' feet. Peace to you, Jonathan. Can I see Johanna? She is coming. She has dismissed the Roman ladies to come to you. Jesus looks at him inquisitively, but does not ask anything. He walks towards the house, listening to Jonathan, who is speaking of Chuza, much disgusted with Herod, and who says, For my mistress' sake, I beg you to stop him, because he wants to do things which would not do any good to you or to him above all to you. Johanna hastens towards the Lord, and heedless of her beautiful dress, she prostrates herself in the dust of the path and kisses Jesus' feet. She is wearing a splendid white dress, over which from her head hangs a veil that looks like silver filigree, so closely is it embroidered with silver threads, and I do not know how such light cloth can support that silver brocade embroidery, and on her head a thin diadem, point-shaped in front like a mitre, studded with pearls, heavy pearl earrings, a pearl necklace, and pearl bracelets and rings, an appearance of beauty, purity, and grace. Peace to you, Johanna. When you were with me there is always peace in me, and in my house. Mother! And she wants to kiss the feet of Mary, who instead receives her in her arms, kissing her. A kiss is exchanged with Mary of Alphaeus as well. After the greetings, Jesus says, Johanna, I must speak to you. Here I am, Master. Mary, my house is yours. Order what you need. I am going with the Master. Jesus has already gone onto the lawn where he can be seen by everybody, but is so isolated that no one can hear him. Johanna joins him. Johanna, I have to receive a messenger from Antioch, who is certainly coming from Syntyche. I was thinking of doing so in your house, here in your garden. You are the master of everything that belongs to Johanna, also of your heart. Jesus stares at her. You know already, Master. I was almost certain. But now I am completely sure. Chuza, the incoherency of men is really great. Their attachments to interest is very strong, and their pity for their wives is really so faint. We are, even we, the wives of the best husbands. What are we? A jewel which is displayed or concealed according to its usefulness. A mime who must laugh or weep, attract or reject, speak or be silent, show or hide ourselves in compliance with her man's wishes, always in his interest. Our destiny is a sad one, Lord, and degrading as well. As compensation, your spirits are enabled to climb higher. That is true. Did you find out by yourself, or did they speak to you about it? Have you seen Manaen? He was looking for you. No, I have not seen anybody. Is he here? Yes, we are all here. I mean, all the courtiers of Herod, and many to hate him. Among them there is also Chuza, since Herod, by Herodiad's will, delighted in mortifying his superintendent. Lord, do you remember that at Bether I told you that he wanted to separate me from you because he was afraid of falling into Herod's disfavor? Only a few months have gone by, and he now wants me to... Yes, Lord, he would like me to persuade you to accept his help to become king in place of the tetrarch. I must tell you because I am a woman, thus subject to man, and the Jewish woman over and above, thus subject to the will of her husband more than ever. And I am telling you, and I do not advise you, because I hope that I am already aware that you... Oh, you will not make yourself king with the help of hired lancers. Oh, what have I said? I should not have spoken thus. I should have let you listen to Chuza, Manan, and others first, and if I had kept silent, would I not have done the wrong thing? Lord, help me to see what is just. What is just is in your heart, Johanna. Neither with Roman cohorts nor with Israelite lancers will I make myself king. Even if Rome and Israel decided to pacify this region through me, I have already understood enough to reconstruct facts. Matthias has spoken in prudent words. Jonathan has mentioned people being disgusted. You are telling the rest. I will complete the picture thus. A foolish idea of my kingdom is thus inducing good people who are not yet just, like Manaen, to create risings capable of establishing the kingdom of Israel according to the fixed idea of the majority of people. A sharp, passionate need to revenge themselves of an affront is urging others, among them your husband, to do the same thing. The shrewdness of Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, and also of Herod plays on those two motives to succeed in getting rid of me, by making me appear in the eyes of our rulers what I am not. You have dismissed the Roman ladies to tell me this, in order not to betray Chuza, Manaen, or the others, but I tell you that in actual fact the Gentiles have understood me more than anybody else. They call me a philosopher. Perhaps they consider me a dreamer, an unrealist, an unhappy man according to their mentality which bases everything on violence. But they have understood at least, they have understood this, that I do not belong to the earth, that my kingdom does not belong to the earth. They are not afraid of me, but of my followers. They are right. My followers, some out of love, some out of pride, would be quite capable of doing anything to realize their idea, to make of me, who am the King of Kings, the universal King, the poor king of a small nation. I really must watch this snare very carefully, as it works in the shade, instigated by my true enemies, who are not in the proconsular building at Caesarea, or in that of the governor in Antioch, or in the Antonia. They are under the tephilim, the fringes, and the zizith of Jewish garments, and particularly under the wide tephilim and the fluffy zizith attached to the large garments of Pharisees and scribes, to prove their even greater compliance with the law. But the law is in hearts, not on garments. If it were in their hearts, those who hate one another, but who are now united, forgetting their hatred in order to do harm, the hatred which digs deep ravines between one caste of Israel and another, and which now is no longer separated, but has been leveled, because the ravines have been filled with hatred for me. If the law were in their hearts, and not hanging or attached to their garments, foreheads, hands, just as a savage wears amulets, shells, bones, beaks of vultures out of superstition or as ornaments, if this law were in their hearts, if wisdom were not written in the tephilim but on the fibers of their hearts, they would understand who I am, and that they cannot go against me to destroy me as word and as man. I must therefore defend myself from friends and from enemies, unfair equally in their hatred and in their love. I must try to guide their love and appease their hatred. I do so to do my duty, and I will do so until I build my kingdom, wetting the stones with my blood to cement them. When I have sprinkled you with my blood, your hearts will no longer vacillate. I am speaking of hearts faithful to me, of yours, Johanna, who are struggling between two forces and two loves which are on you and in you. Chuza, I. But you will win, Lord. Yes, I will win. But try to save Chuza as well. Love whom I love. I love him who loves you. Love Chuza who loves you. Falsehood does not befit that forehead which is as pure as the pearls adorning it, and is now blushing in the effort of wishing to persuade itself and me of Chuza's love for me. And yet he loves you. Yes, for his own interest. And for his interest he did not love me at Zeo and Siram. But here is Simon of Jonah with the stranger. Let us go and meet them. They go as far as the large vestibule at the rear of the house, rather a semicircular porch than a vestibule, open on the park, which extends as far as the house. The semicircular vestibule, open on the garden, is adorned with columns, with branches of rose bushes at present without flowers, and delicate branches of jasmines full of flowers, and with other purple creepers, the names of which I do not know. Peace be with you, foreigner. Did you want me? Health and glory, Lord. I wanted you. I have a letter for you. A Greek woman gave it to me at Antioch. I am no longer Greek, because I became a Roman citizen to continue my contract work. I am purveyor to the Roman troops. I hate them, but it is profitable to supply them with provisions. For what they have done to us, I should mix hemlock with their flour, but they should all be poisoned. A few is of no avail. It would be worse. They think that they are allowed to do anything because they are strong. They are barbarians as compared with the Greeks. They have robbed us of everything to adorn themselves with our art and appear civilized. But if you scratch the crust which is colored with the hue of our civilization, you will always find an Amulius, a Romulus, a Tarquinius. You always find a Brutus, the murderer of his benefactor. At present they have Tiberias, still not enough for them. They have Sejanus, they have what they deserve. Swords, chains, crimes committed by them are turning against them and biting the flesh of the Roman brutes. Still too little, but the law will not fail. When the monster becomes huge, it will collapse because of its own weight, and will rot, and the vanquished will laugh at the enormous corpse, and will become once again the winners. Let it be so. May the feet of all the conquerors crush her who crushed everything in her brutal expansion. But forgive me, Lord, I have been carried away once again by my perpetual grief. I was saying that a Greek woman gave me a letter for you, and she told me that you are the perfect, virtuous man. Virtuous. You are young to be so. The great spirits of Hellas spent all their lives to become a little virtuous, and yet the woman informed me of your idea. If you really believe in what you teach, you are great. Is it true that you live to prepare yourself to die, in order to give the world the wisdom of living as gods and not as brutes, as men do at present? Is it true that you maintain that there is only one wealth worth achieving, that of virtues? Is it true that you have come to redeem, but that redemption begins in ourselves, following your teaching? Is it true that we have a soul, and that we must take care of it, as it is a divine thing, everlasting, incorruptible by its nature, but that we, by living as brutes, can deprive it of its divine character, although we cannot destroy it? Answer, O Great One. It is all true. It is all very true. By Jove! Also our greatest one said so, but it sounded like music lacking a note, like a lyre lacking a chord. Now and again one perceived an empty space which the philosopher never crossed. You have filled it up. If you have really come not only to teach, but also to die, not compelled by anybody, but through your own will to obey God, which changes your death from suicide to sacrifice, by divine Pallas, none of our gods ever did that. I infer, therefore, that you are above them. The Greek woman says that they do not exist, and that you only are. So, am I speaking to a god? Can a god listen thus to a purveyor, to a miserable thief who hates his enemies? Why do you listen to me? Because I see your soul. You see it? What is it like? twisted, dirty, snake-haired, bitter, ignorant, although your intellect is quite different from that of a barbarian. But within your ugly temple you have an altar which is waiting, like the one in the Areopagus, and it is waiting for the same thing, the true God. For you then, because the Greek woman says that you are the true God, but by Jove, what you say of my soul is true. You are more explicit and certain than the Delphic oracle, but you preach peace, love, and forgiveness, difficult virtues, and you preach continence and all kinds of honesty. To be all that is to be gods, greater than gods, because they are not pacific, honest, generous. They are the perfection of the wicked passions of men, with the exception of Minerva, who is at least wise. Even Diana, pure but cruel. Yes, to be what you preach is to be greater than the gods. If I became so, by the most beautiful Ganymede, he was abducted by the Olympic eagle and became a divine cupbearer. But Zeno, from supplier of fodder to barbarian rulers, will become God. But let me dwell on this thought, and in the meantime you can read the letter of the woman. And the man begins to walk up and down like a peripatetic. Peter, being tired and seeing that the conversation was a long one, has sat down comfortably on a seat in the hall, and has begun to doze peacefully in the cool place, on the soft cushions lying on the seat. But he must have been sleeping with one eye open, because he is roused by the noise of the seal being broken and of the unrolling parchment, and he rises to his feet, rubbing his sleepy eyes. He approaches the master, who is reading, standing under a chandelier made of mica plates of a delicate violet hue. As the light is faint, suitable to light up the place without depriving it of the charm of moonlight in clear nights, Jesus is holding the parchment high up in order to see the words, and Peter, who is much smaller than the master, standing beside him, tries to stretch his neck, standing on the tips of his toes, in order to see, but without success. "It's Syntyche, eh? What does she say?" he asks twice, and he begs, "Read in a loud voice, master." And Jesus replies, "Yes, it is she." Later, and he goes on reading, and when he finishes the first sheet, he rolls it up, he puts it in the folds of his belt, and begins to read the second sheet. "What a long letter she has written, eh? How is John? And who is that man?" Peter is as insistent as a boy. Jesus is so engrossed that he no longer listens to him. Also, the second sheet is finished, and is put away as the first one. "They will get spoilt there. Give them to me. I will keep them." And he certainly thinks, "And I will have a look at them." But when he raises his eyes to look at Jesus' hand unrolling the third and last sheet, he sees a tear shine on Jesus' fair eyelashes. "Master, are you weeping?" "Why, master?" he says, and he presses against him, embracing him with his short, muscular arm. "John is dead." "Oh, poor man. When did he die?" "At the beginning of summer, wishing so much to see us." "Oh, poor John. Of course, he was already at his end, and his grief in parting, all because of some snakes. I wish I knew their names. Read aloud, Lord. I was fond of John." "Later. I will read it to you later. Be quiet now." Jesus reads attentively. Peter stretches himself even more to see. The reading is over. Jesus rolls the sheet and says, "Call my mother." "Are you not going to read?" "I am waiting for the others. In the meantime, I will dismiss that man." And while Peter goes into the house where the women disciples are with Johanna, Jesus approaches the Greek. "When are you leaving?" "Oh, I have to go to the proconsul at Caesarea, and then to Joppa after I purchase some goods. I will be leaving in a month's time, in time to avoid the November storms. I am going by sea. Do you need me?" "Yes, to send a reply. The Greek woman says that I can trust you. They say that we are false, but we are also able not to be so. You can trust me. You can prepare your letter, and look for me at the tabernacles at Cleanthus's house. He supplies me with the cheese of Judea for the tables of the Romans. It is the third house after the fountain in the village of Bethphage. You cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong either if you proceed along the path on which you have set foot. Goodbye, man. Greek civilization leads you to the Christian one." "Are you not reproaching me for hating?" "Do you feel that I should?" "Yes, because you disapprove of hatred as being a contemptible passion, and you abhor vengeance. And what is your opinion on the matter?" "I think that he who does not hate and forgives is greater than Jupiter." "Achieve, then, that greatness. Goodbye, man. May your family love Syntyche, and in the exile in which you are at present, take the paths that lead to the eternal fatherland, heaven. Those who believe in me and practice my words will have that fatherland. May light enlighten you. Go in peace." The man says goodbye and goes away. He then stops, comes back, and asks, "Will I not hear you speak?" "I will speak at dawn at Tarichaea. Then I will be going towards Syrophoenicia, and later, I do not know by which road, to Jerusalem. I will look for you, and I will be at Tarichaea tomorrow to see whether you are as eloquent, as wise." He goes away, finally. The women are in the hall, and with Peter they are commenting on John's death. Also the other apostles have come, the one who had been left in town to inform the people that the rabbi would be at Tarichaea the following morning. They all speak of poor John of Endor, and are anxious to know. "He died, son." "Yes, he is in peace." "He has really finished suffering. He has been freed from prison indefinitely. He should not have suffered that last affliction of exile." An additional purification. "Oh, I would not like that kind of purification for myself, any other, but not to die from the Master, but not to die far from the Master. And yet we shall all die thus." "Master, take us away with you," says Andrew, after the others have spoken. "You do not know what you are asking, Andrew. This is your place until I call you. But listen to what Syntyche writes. Syntyche of Christ greets Christ Jesus. The man who will bring you these sheets is a compatriot of mine. He has promised to look for you until he finds you, using as last resort Bethany, where he will leave the letter with Lazarus in the event he should not succeed in finding you anywhere. He is one who is making up as best he can for all the wrong he and his ancestors have received from Rome. Rome has struck them 3 times, in many ways, and with her usual methods. He says with Greek humor that he is now milking the cows of the Tiber to make them spit out the Greek goats. He is purveyor of the governor, and to many Roman families of this little Rome and great town, Queen of the East. Further, after the delicatessen for rich people, with his astute manners of servile flattery concealing his incurable hatred, he has been successful in securing the contract for supplying the eastern cohorts. I do not approve of his methods, but everybody has his own ways. I would have preferred the bread begged in the street to the gold coffers given to him by the oppressor, and I would have always behaved thus, if I were not urged by another reason, which brings no profit to me, to imitate the Greek for my own purpose. After all, he is a good man, and his wife is good as well as his 3 daughters and his son. I met them at the little school at Antigoniea, and with the balm I cured the mother who had been taken ill at the beginning of spring, and so I began to go to their house. Many families would have welcomed me with pleasure as a teacher and embroideress, noble families and business people, but I preferred this one for a reason which has nothing to do with their being Greeks. I will explain the situation to you.